It was our wedding anniversary, and my husband, daughter, and I were gathered around the table, savoring a delicious meal together. After we finished eating, my husband stood up with a small, excited smile. "I picked up a special wine for tonight," he said, his voice warm with anticipation. "Hope you'll enjoy it." "Oh, that's so thoughtful of you," I responded, smiling back. "Let me open it. Is the wine opener in the kitchen?" He got up and headed toward the kitchen, his actions almost rehearsed. Moments later, he returned with a glass of wine, handing it to me with a flourish. "Here you go. Give it a try." "Thank you," I said, raising the glass. "Cheers to us." As soon as I took a sip of the wine, I choked and gasped for air. "I can't breathe," I cried out, collapsing to the floor and clutching my throat. Our 7-year-old daughter, witnessing the panic, burst into tears. "Daddy, something's wrong with Mommy. We need to call an ambulance," she shouted, her voice trembling with fear. My husband, however, remained eerily silent and unmoved, merely watching me in distress. Our daughter clung to my clothes, sobbing uncontrollably. Once my movements had ceased, he coldly pushed her aside and, without a word, walked out of the house. As soon as the front door clicked shut, I quickly sat up, reflecting on the reality of my situation. My name is Mary, I'm 34 years old, and I've been married. I'm a composer with a bit of a name, known for providing songs to singers and groups. One of my earlier tracks became a theme song for a TV series, and the royalties have afforded me a comfortable lifestyle. I met my husband, Kenny, at a friend's wedding after party. He was in sales for a liquor company and enjoyed drinking as much as I did. Our mutual love for alcohol brought us together. Kenny, with his knack for recklessness and lack of foresight, was once charming in his spontaneity. We began dating, started going out for drinks on weekends, and eventually got married a few years later. Soon after, we were blessed with a daughter named Holly, completing our family of 3. After we got married, I quickly noticed that Kenny wasn't very involved with household chores or childcare. Even with Holly's arrival, he continued his carefree lifestyle, seemingly oblivious to the demands of my busy life. One evening, as Holly cried loudly in her crib, Kenny called out from the kitchen. "Hey Mary, Holly's crying. I'm cooking. Can you take care of her?" I replied, "It's a hassle. She might be more comfortable with you." Kenny avoided taking responsibility with excuses, remaining fixated on his phone. With a resigned sigh, I turned off the stove and went to tend to Holly. "Kenny, I asked this many times, but can you please help more around the house and with Holly? Managing everything on my own is overwhelming." "Why should I? I'm already balancing work and household chores. Holly is our child, not just mine." Kenny's response was a re-smile. "Why not just hire a housekeeper or babysitter?" "That's not the issue," I said, frustrated. "I don't want to spend recklessly, especially with Holly's future in mind. We agreed to maintain a middle-class lifestyle, didn't we?" "Did we?" he retorted, clearly uninterested in the discussion. "Anyway, I'm always exhausted from work. You handle the house and everything." Despite numerous attempts to have a proper conversation, I never received a satisfactory response. Eventually, I had no choice but to manage both household chores and care for Holly on my own. As the years passed, Holly grew quickly, and before we knew it, she was 5 years old and about to start elementary school. To celebrate this milestone, my in-laws planned a dinner party. Their home is about an hour's drive away, and we've always enjoyed a good relationship with them. My father-in-law is a strict man who values honesty but has always been kind to me, while my mother-in-law is relaxed and charming. At the dinner table, Holly proudly displayed her new backpack and lunch bag. "Thank you, Grandpa and Grandma," she said, beaming. My in-laws watched with joy, clearly delighted by her excitement. "Mary, Holly's growth is a testament to your hard work," my father-in-law said as he poured me a drink, causing me to blush slightly. "Holly's such a good girl. She helps me out a lot," I replied, smiling. "Well, she's my daughter," Kenny said with pride, and I chose to let it pass without comment. "I heard you're working on the theme song for the next movie, Mary," my mother-in-law added. "Yes, the song is ready. The movie is scheduled for release next month," I confirmed. "Kenny, you have a wonderful wife. You must be very proud," my father-in-law remarked. However, Kenny's expression remained unchanged, and he didn't seem particularly pleased. "But she earns so much, yet I don't get to enjoy any of the luxuries that come with it," Kenny said, surprising both my in-laws and me. "What?" we all exclaimed, taken aback by his comment. Kenny continued, "People call her a prominent composer, so I expected a better lifestyle. She never gives me any pocket money and refuses to enhance our quality of life. She's stubborn and stingy. Hold on, Kenny, my mother-in-law interjected. You both live in a beautiful apartment. Didn't Mary buy that? Yes, my father-in-law agreed. And isn't it a man's role to support the family rather than rely on Mary? Have you considered working to increase your own income? Yeah, got it, Kenny grumbled. And that was the end of the conversation. I felt a mix of irritation towards him and gratitude for my in-laws' support. Soon after, Kenny started coming home late, claiming it was due to work. At first, I wasn't too concerned, given that his sales job often required overtime. But then, he began spending even his days off away from home and was always glued to his phone when he was there. His interactions with Holly and me grew increasingly distant. One Sunday, Holly had planned a special outing with Kenny. She gently shook him awake. Dad, it's already 9 o'clock. Remember, today was supposed to be our outing day. At Holly's words, Kenny suddenly sat up and without saying a word roughly pushed her aside. Holly, taken aback and with tears welling up in her eyes, stumbled back. What's going on? I demanded, gathering Holly in my arms and raising my voice. Kenny, now fully awake, looked clearly irritated. I have other things to do today, he snapped. I needed to sleep a bit longer. Did you forget your promise to Holly? And how could you push our daughter like that? I demanded, my frustration clear. Be quiet, you're both in the way. Get out of the bedroom now, Kenny shouted, forcefully ushering Holly and me out before getting ready with meticulous care and leaving the house. His behavior was completely unforgivable, especially towards Holly. As I comforted Holly, my doubts about Kenny deepened. A month later, one evening after a particularly exhausting day at work, I collapsed into bed after tucking Holly in. In the middle of the night, feeling thirsty, I went to the kitchen for a drink. As I stood there, I heard Kenny's cheerful voice coming from the living room. It sounded like he was on a call with someone. I strained to hear what Kenny was saying, my curiosity piqued. Suddenly, a phrase that stopped me in my tracks reached my ears. Beth, you're the only one I love. I was stunned. This was clearly a conversation with another woman. Infidelity. Just as I was about to confront him, I overheard another disturbing statement. Also, start the plan for the wedding anniversary in 3 days. Everything will go as planned. Kenny continued discussing the details of this plan over the phone. I was chilled by the implications. What's going on? Kenny is not only cheating but also scheming something with her. I quickly slipped my recording phone back into my pocket and retreated to the bedroom without being noticed. When Kenny returned later, he fell into a deep sleep beside me, but I couldn't close my eyes at all. The next morning, after Kenny left for work, I took some time to collect my thoughts in our room. Initially overwhelmed by sadness, my feelings quickly shifted to anger. I know this myself, I resolved. I went to an electronics store and purchased security cameras, installing them throughout the house. 3 days later, on our wedding anniversary, Kenny had been unusually affectionate since he woke up. Mary, today is a special day, he said warmly. Yes, it is, I replied. I'm glad you remembered, he said, smiling. Of course I remembered, Kenny said with a smile. I know I've been coming home late from work lately, and I'm sorry about that, but today, I'll be home early. Let's celebrate our wedding anniversary. I'm looking forward to it, I replied. I've prepared a special meal. Mary, I truly love you, he added. Feigning ignorance, I simply nodded as Kenny headed off to work. Once he was gone, I calmly continued my preparations. At around 6 o'clock p.m., Kenny returned home. I had arranged a lavish dinner and was ready to greet him. How was your day, Kenny? I asked. Dad, you came home early today? Holly exclaimed. Holly was thrilled to see Kenny home earlier than usual, her excitement evident. Watching her joy while knowing what was to come weighed heavily on my heart. I felt a pang of sorrow as I looked at her. I'm sorry, Holly, I whispered. Kenny looked around the table, taking in the feast I had prepared. Wow, this looks amazing. Shall we dig in? The three of us gathered around the table and enjoyed the meal together. As we finished, Kenny reached for something he had set aside. I bought a special wine for our anniversary. I think you'll really like it. Thank you. That's very thoughtful of you. I'll go ahead and open it. Is the wine opener in the kitchen? He spoke in a rehearsed tone as if reading from a script and headed to the kitchen. Moments later, he returned, pouring the wine into my glass. Here, give it a try. Thank you. Cheers, I said, trying to remain composed. As soon as I took a sip, a wave of distress hit me. I can't breathe. I gasped, clutching my throat and collapsing. Our 5-year-old daughter, horrified, cried out, "Daddy, something's wrong with Mommy. Call an ambulance." Kenny remained silent, watching me in agony while our daughter, her face streaked with tears, desperately tugged at his clothes. When I finally stopped moving, Kenny pushed our daughter aside and left without a word. As soon as I heard the front door slam, I quickly got up. I had anticipated this outcome. Holly, seeing my calmness, looked stunned, her face streaked with tears and snot. I held her gently. "I'm so sorry, Holly. It was a terrible prank, a really cruel one. I never meant to frighten you." "A prank? I thought I lost you," she sobbed, clinging to me. In the shadows, a group of onlookers watched with bewildered expressions. Kenny came home late that night. "Is Holly asleep already?" Kenny asked as he walked in, his voice tinged with annoyance. I remained hidden in the darkened living room. "Welcome back, Kenny," I said, flipping on the light. His face went pale, clearly shocked by my sudden appearance. "Why are you still here?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. Surprised by my calm demeanor, I replied, watching his shock deepen. "It was all an act. I overheard your plan." The conversation I accidentally heard from Kenny was chilling. "You'll handle the poison, right? It needs to be colorless, odorless, and tasteless. She loves wine, so it'll be easy to mix in. Afterward, we'll stage it as a suicide due to work stress. Once she's out of the picture, we'll inherit everything. The insurance, the royalties, and even this apartment. It'll be the start of our new life." When Kenny realized I knew about his plan, his face flushed with anger. "You eavesdropped. That's despicable," he shouted. "Even if it was an accident, discussing such things at home was foolish." "That's how I gained the upper hand," I replied calmly. Kenny's rage only intensified as he glared at me. He then grabbed my bag and pulled out a small, unfamiliar bottle. It was clearly not one of my things. I guess it was intended to frame me for a supposed suicide. "Now that you know, I have no choice but to make you drink this." "There's still time to stop," I pleaded, trying to find a way to escape. Just then, a loud voice echoed through the room. "Kenny, stop." "Dad." Both my in-laws appeared in the doorway, their expressions stern. "Why are you two here?" Kenny demanded, bewildered. "We've been here since this evening at Mary's request," my father-in-law explained, pointing to a surveillance camera mounted in the corner. "We were monitoring the feed from another room. We saw everything from when you poured the contents of that bottle into a glass to when you hid it in Mary's bag." Kenny's face went pale as he realized the camera had captured his every move and that my in-laws had been watching the footage in real time. Staring at the camera, he looked utterly stunned. "That's not all. I recorded the entire conversation," I said, pulling out my phone and playing the audio. The incriminating evidence made my in-laws wince and Kenny's face drained of color. "With this recording, the camera footage, and the remaining wine as evidence, it will be easy to report you to the police." Kenny immediately dropped to his knees in front of his parents. "Dad, Mom, please help me. I don't want to be labeled a criminal." "You don't want your son to be arrested, do you?" "You idiot," my father-in-law said coldly, delivering a sharp blow to Kenny's face that sent him sprawling. My mother-in-law looked on with clear disdain. "It's not just what you did to Mary. You didn't even consider Holly," my father-in-law said, his voice full of condemnation. "You made her cry, and I can't forgive you for that. I can't even think of you as our son. We've already reported you to the police. They should be here soon." "Accept your fate," my father-in-law added. Seeing that he was abandoned, a tearful Kenny stumbled toward me. "Don't come any closer," I said firmly. "Mary, please forgive me," Kenny pleaded. "If you don't press charges, I won't be arrested. I only love you. Let's start over as a family with Holly." "Do you really expect me to believe that after everything you've done, after trying to take my life? There's no way I can ever forgive you." "I'm so sorry. Please help me. You and your mistress both," Kenny begged. "I will never forgive you. Accept your punishment." Before he could say more, the sound of approaching police sirens grew louder. After the incident, Kenny and his mistress were convicted in court and sentenced to prison. Kenny and I finalized our divorce through our lawyers. His parents provided me with a substantial sum as compensation for the distress their son had caused. It turned out that Kenny's mistress, a university student studying pharmacology, had used her access to steal poison from the university, intending to use her knowledge to harm me. I also sought compensation from her, which her parents promptly paid. I have no intention of ever forgiving her. While Kenny is serving his prison sentence, neither I nor his parents have visited him. They've made it clear they'll support him once he's released on parole, arranging for him to settle and work far from here. I sincerely hope Kenny never crosses paths with me or our daughter, Holly, again. Holly and I have moved to a quiet, peaceful place. I told her, your dad is working far away now. When she replied, he doesn't have to come back, I couldn't help but smile, though it was tinged with bitterness. From now on, I'm focused on leading a calm and positive life, cherishing the future we're building together.